Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're calling in from today. Welcome to today's Quick Byte webinar, Beyond Pressing Send, Lessons from Top Nonprofit Texting Programs. We're so excited that you're here joining us for our fourth webinar as part of our Spring Quick Byte series. So thanks for being here. My name is Elise Haynes from TrueSense Marketing, and just a quick little AV test or QC test to make sure you guys can hear us loud and clear. Oh, I have a click in the wrong spot. If you want to navigate over to the polls tab, there's a poll there to ask if you're currently using texting to communicate with donors. So if you want to hop over that polls tab, vote, let us know that you can hear us. That would be wonderful. If you have any questions for Katie or Stasha or any tech questions that I can help you with, feel free to pop those in the chat throughout today's webinar. So today's presenters, like I alluded to, is Kay D'Amico from TrueSense Marketing and Stasha Yin from Prompt, our partner on the tech side of making those text message programs work for our nonprofit clients. So thank you guys both for being here, and I'm excited to learn. And without further ado, I'll pass you off to Katie.
Awesome. Thanks, Elise. So we're really excited to be here with you today. We want to talk a little bit about some common challenges that we see a lot of people have with text messaging, some things to keep in mind when you're thinking about starting or growing your program, and some interesting kind of case studies on, some of the things that we've seen be successful. I have been with TrueSense Marketing for quite a long time, and about 2 years ago, I launched our True Text texting program for our clients in partnership with Prompt.io as our technology provider. And in that process, got to know Stasha really well, and we're really excited to be here today to kind of chat with you about texting.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Like Katie said, I've been with her since she first came on board with Prompt, and very quickly just not just her lovely personality and presence and warmth, which you'll see as we go through the webinar today, but also just the creativity of the content in the programs that she's running through TrueSense. It's been really exciting to watch her metrics, and I'm so excited to be a nerd about texting, as we often are through email, for this webinar. So I'm so excited to talk through all of this with you.
So the first thing we're going to get started on is talking about audience. So some of you may have been with us last fall when we did another webinar about texting that was a little bit more about basics and getting started. And then we talked a little bit about this then too. Growing your audience can be one of the more challenging things that you need to do. And there's a lot of ways to go about it. So we want to take a look at some examples. So first off, we are always starting from a foundation of making this a fully organic and available option for your supporters. So the best way to grow your audience is for them to want to be your audience. So we really emphasize making it easy for people to join the texting program by texting in a keyword to a phone number, including all opt-in opportunities across your website, and including it with other in-person events you might be doing. Maybe it's a QR code that people can scan while they're waiting in line to register at an event. But there's a lot of good ways that you can encourage people to raise their hands and self-select to be in your program. In addition to that, we always like to emphasize that you have this relationship existing with your donors now, and you can ask them to join. You can bring them into the platform and actually text them to say, we want to reach out to you. Is that okay with you? And those are some strategies that we really like to emphasize right off the bat.
Yeah. Katie, I think that's really sound advice, like using low level asks, any kind of update related to the mission. You'll see today, even offerings. Katie incorporates in her programming very clear offerings to her audience. And I think as they relate directly to your mission, it's a great way to introduce texting outreach. Another thing that you've touched on too is that, and we've seen over and over again throughout this space, that the most successful programs tend to be and regardless of the metrics, tend to be ones that don't feel so mass produced and that do feel, personal. So creatively thinking about how and when to send, to an inbound message, how and when to send a thank you note. I think those will ultimately, you'll find that those will cultivate stronger relationships with your supporters through whatever channels you're communicating with them. I'm curious to know what metrics you have seen in your programs be most illuminating in terms of whether or not a texting initiative is being successful.
Yeah, so we are a direct response agency and we want to raise funds for all of our clients. But I will say that when it comes to texting, unusually for me, revenue is not the number one metric I'm looking at for success. I am looking for low opt-out rates and high engagement rates. We've really focused in our program on building this as a relationship between the organization and the donor. And in order to really measure success for me, we need to see how that relationship is blossoming. So we want people to understand and feel like they are speaking to a real person and that they are having a real communication with the organization that they are really tied to supporting. So one of the ways we do that when it comes to audience growth is finding new ways to involve supporters in text messaging. So we really want to introduce the messaging to donors and supporters without making it feel forced. No one wants to feel like they've not heard from anybody in a long time and then suddenly they got a message claiming to be their best friend, And so we want to draw a real logical connection between the donor's activity and relationship with the organization and the fact that they're getting messages from the organization. While all the time really encouraging that engagement and minimizing the, what is this, I don't want this, stop to opt out kind of activity that we might see. We want to make that experience really positive for donors, especially in that first contact or two that they have in this channel. So one way we've seen this really be successful is by joining together a couple of really important sort of nonprofit best practices. So we want to thank donors as much as possible. You're never wrong when you tell a supporter that you appreciate them. And so one example for some of our clients in Salvation Army that we've had great success with is combining this thank you message with this introduction to text messaging. So in this case, on a monthly basis, we're grabbing any new donor with a valid phone number on their donor file, bringing them into the platform and thanking them for their recent gift using a text message. We've done this before using direct phone calls, using mail, and we still do some of those things as well. But this is really something that has made that feel so much more immediate for these donors, even though we're only doing it on a monthly basis. Even at that cadence, people still remember that they did give to you last month and that they're really excited that you noticed and that you reached out to them. So you see here just a few of the kinds of responses that we get. Donors want to tell us why they support and what it means to them. We get some really lovely messages back about, I wish I could just give you more. It's really lovely. And it's not in any way anything that anyone feels is intrusive, I think is really an important thing. So when we look at this and we look at the metrics, we see what we would have hoped to have seen in this situation, right? Much higher response rates in that conversational one-to-one back and forth way that we saw in the previous slide. And we see much fewer opt-out rates than similar messages that are that first introductory message. Those opt-outs come way down whenever there's a really good logical reason that the donor knows they're getting this message for a reason. And then we also, just in comparison to some of the other efforts that we do, traditional phone call thanking can cost up to between $1 and $2, sometimes even more per person that is called. And we can do text messaging thank yous for a much lower rate than that. So.
Yeah, I think, and one of the things I think that is really successful here, I mean, and the responses speak for themselves, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is impactful texting. The responses that you included in these slides, texting can be really easily digestible. You mentioned really budget friendly. It is a
Mm-hmm.
cost effective way of reaching large audiences. And I think, as we'll see here, as we move into Inspiring Action, which is a case study that our team has brought to the conversation, having a robust texting platform really affords some opportunities to provide thoughtful segmentation. Your audience best, and a texting platform that allows you to put that data to use, to thoughtfully
Mm-hmm.
put folks into buckets, think about what your message would be able to track some of their engagement by what clicks they're clicking on, or links they're clicking on, rather. And so this is where Hope for Pause comes into the equation. This
Mm-hmm.
is one of the things that I love most about the work that we do, is, again, just watching the genuinely good human to human work that happens in this space,
Mm-hmm.
and that our platform gets to play any role of it. It's really exciting to be a part of. Hope for Pause is just one example, but it's one that we highlight often because of the success of their programming. They are a nonprofit that rescue animals in the Los Angeles area. They provide veterinary care, and then they ultimately transfer them to partner adoption centers. And they document that entire process in really high quality, long form video, that you can't really send on an MMS, but you can send through a link. And so, there were some other challenges that they needed to think through as well. Being able to run fully registered traffic that meet all the 10 DLC requirements.
Mm-hmm.
Supporting two-way conversational texting is really important to a lot of the programs that we see that are successful in this space. And they needed something beyond just a traditional add-on. They needed a robust solution, and so that is when they found our platform. But being able to use this medium to tell stories, and again, due to the restrictions of sending via MMS, which there are a lot of other fun things that we will talk about, other ways that
Yeah.
Katie will dive in later. But for this, these long form, high quality videos that they still, again, wanted to make use of cost effective, efficient way to reach
Mm-hmm.
large audience. And so we provide a trackable link that they can send that will direct people to that long form. They thoughtfully think about the still that is there. I mean, we see Brenda's face, you can select that. It helps tell the story. And again, the metrics kind of speak for themselves. And there are varying ways in which people will look at the numbers and focus in on this bucket of numbers or that bucket of numbers. But when you're looking at, these kind of click-through rates,
Mm-hmm.
again, the metrics are speaking for themselves on top of just the real life responses that you're seeing. So yeah, this idea of storytelling in particular, Katie, I think has been a
Mm-hmm.
through line in some of
Yeah.
your most successful programs. Can you talk a little bit about how that inherent aspect of donor relations kind of comes to life through?
Yeah. So I love this example because I think it shows how immediate texting can feel, and also how long form, short form video content is really, really powerful. I think we all know that. So one of the things we see people do with great success, some of our clients will record their fundraising staff really thanking donors in a not an official, not a produced kind of video. I think one of the things that we emphasize is that this is a channel that feels very authentic. It feels like you're talking to an individual. So it's okay to produce the content for this channel in a way that makes it feel very personal. Maybe it's just someone sitting at their desk saying, I really appreciate everything you did. Maybe they're out in the field doing really engaging in their mission, and just a few seconds of video can make all the difference. So in this case, we've got these beautiful long form videos that you can link to and really see how many people are engaging and clicking through. But we've also got the opportunity in the platform to do shorter form sort of snippets that can be delivered right within the message. We use both in our work with our clients and really see that video as a great way to up the engagement and remind people that this is not a corporate PR conversation they're having. It's a very authentic communication that they're having, and that the things that they're seeing and the stories that they're being pointed to really are the outcome of the donor's generosity, and they show that really, really clearly. You might have a great story, but you don't have the time or the energy or the staffing to tease that out into a long form narrative with stats and supporting details. When it comes to text messaging, you just need the basics to communicate that in the same way you might tell a friend about the great thing you got to do at work that day. And I think that that's a really good way of thinking about the content as far as that authenticity goes.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I am going to kick it back over to you, because
Sure.
this is your specialties.
Oh, this is the fun section. So I definitely am excited about some of the stuff that we've been able to try and some of the things still on the horizon as far as our messaging. So this is inherently a communication, a one-to-one conversational channel. It feels personal, even if the messaging is very, very standard. When you get a text message, you think about it as being somebody individually reaching out to you. And so we really want to emphasize that in the messaging that we encourage, and, make sure that we're keeping a really healthy balance of the need being front and center, the opportunities to support being front and center, but also sharing with donors as if you're just talking to another person, So one of the things we wanted to kind of point out here is ways that we've tackled sort of formulating this mix of content that will both support the mission and support the channel, but also really pull that engagement and make sure that we're building a longer term relationship than just a single gift. One of the things that I think about a lot whenever we work on any sort of text messaging is I don't want this to be another channel that donors kind of tune out. We see it with direct mail will sometimes get thrown in the trash. Emails won't get opened or seen, or they'll be hidden in a folder somewhere. And I really think that this is a great opportunity to rethink the way we craft these messages in order to keep that relationship kind of fresh. So we want to think about communicating like a person, not like an organization, providing fun, engaging content, and really speaking in a very conversational way. So I think we've got a bunch of examples here that we wanted to kind of highlight on ways that this has worked out well. So the main core of all of it is really to make it interactive as much as possible. Use what the platform gives you and what the channel provides in that way, and then make it fun and make it interesting. I would say asterisk next to interesting, make it interesting and positive. This may not be you don't always want to come out with the statistics of how great the need is. You might want to instead think about focusing on that one story that shows how the need was met. I think that's a really good balance to kind of keep in mind. Stasia, do you see the same thing with other clients that are using the platform?
We always see anytime you're asking the questions that you're asking, you know what I mean? Like the way the creativity is going to present itself is going to relate a lot to the customer and the end message. And however, when the customers that I see be the most successful are the ones that are asking themselves that question, challenging themselves to make sure that they don't become just a drone. There's this concept of like, spray out your message to as many people and pray. Let's pray and pray. That is, the lack of thoughtfulness shows in the metrics. Do you know what I mean? Like you could make a count, you could make an argument that it's so cheap to send texts. But I think, again, in this space and for a lot of the goals that, nonprofits are reaching for, this thoughtful way of making a human connection is always going to show itself in your metrics.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think it's really thinking for the long term and how you make your program kind of long lasting versus a more flash in the pan kind of thing. So looking at a couple examples, this is one I love. This is one that we've done a lot of different types of things with. So we like to create opportunities for interactive engagement. The example you see here was one of the first we did for one of our animal welfare clients, where we did the age-old debate. Are you a dog person? Are you a cat person? Can you not decide? Are you both? And in the journey through this messaging, we ask the question. When we get the answer, then the follow-up is, great, here, I want to find out from you, help us pick some names for our adoptable animals. So in this example, you see the pathway that someone would experience if they picked both. They see both the cat and the dog. We gave them suggestions of good duo names that we wanted them to pick from. And then about a week later, they got a follow-up message letting them know what names were the winners. If you only picked cat or you only picked dog, you got a little bit of a different second message where you were just looking for the dog or cat name. It was a very straightforward thing to design with the functionality within the platform, a combination of sending out an outgoing message and also building out some automated responses based on the responses we got back in, so we were able to have that constantly coming back out to the donors as they were responding. And then we had to just go into the platform and count up the responses to get the totals that we needed to show them in the next broadcast. We've done this with other clients to do things like short form quizzes, asking them what parts of the mission inspire them the most, so that we can later tag them with their responses and be able to even serve them specific content related to their preferences. So maybe it's a quiz about how much food does the food bank give away on an annual basis. Or, are you more interested in supporting patient care or research or education for a medical foundation? We've really seen a lot of positive engagement and people being really thankful and excited that we're asking their opinion. I think that's been one of the really exciting parts of all of this, are the answers you get that aren't the multiple choice, but that are just the comments and questions from people.
Yeah, people tend to be very honest on text. They really do tell you what you think, but there's a common truth. People like to feel, we all like to feel like our opinion matters, and that the people, the causes that we care about are thinking about us too. So, yes, I'm looking at the chat. I'm so glad. Thank you, text marketing, true sense. Text marketing, my words are hard today. But I love one of the things that I really admire about this particular initiative and a few of your other examples is this intersection between harnessing the automations and the functionality of texting, but also, again, keeping it fun, we'll use our own handsets as a guide, right? Like, what are the texts that we ourselves receive that we would want to engage with? It's a good question to ask ourselves before we launch a broadcast out.
Definitely. Yeah. And, sometimes we just want to make it fun for fun's sake. So maybe it's riddles or fun animated GIFs that should be animating, but I don't think they are, but that's okay. Just imagine adorable illustrations of avocados.
Really,
Yes.
I can attest. I've seen them. They
Yes,
really
gorgeous
slide
avocado
the
dancing.
slides version when they
In
move.
that
They're so
second.
cute.
But we've definitely around holidays or certain times of year been able to go out with like your best dad joke. This is where you get to use your puns. This is where you could use, you know, the funny wordplay that you might relate to your mission. It's also, you know, you might not be putting emojis in any of your other donor communications, but this is where it makes sense and where you can get a lot of mileage out of, you know, fun and just fun for fun's sake content. People just enjoy getting something for the heck of it, I think. And it really helps with that idea of making sure that people still want to open your message. One of the things that I always think of is everyone loves the stat about 90% of text messages are opened within the first 3 minutes. That's a great stat. And you want to use that to just donate. But the way we keep that stat as being the truth is to mix our content so that people aren't sure what they're going to get, but they know in the past, sometimes it's been something kind of fun. And so they're going to look, they're going to wonder, they're going to be curious in a positive way about your messages.
Yeah. And I think there's also a clear offering. You know, we often talk about a call to action, right? Like we engage with our audience with a clear call to action. We stress the importance of that. But I think there is the real importance on a call of gratitude to our audience. One thing, kind of piggybacking on this idea of like fun, gifts are, we're seeing a lot of fun things happening in MMS. People are, I think, starting to shift away from like the wall of text. Not that letters and emojis are ever going to completely go out of style, but mixing in multimedia, there's a real, and we are actually, Katie and I are excited to play with a new tool, a new feature that will allow custom gifts to get built and then included in your broadcasts or as replies. So we're very much looking forward to that fun stuff too. I know we're up against the clock, so I want to get.
Good point. Yeah, we'll hurry through. The last piece of this is just making your content interesting and shareable. We talk a lot about sharing content in social media and other channels, but I think texting also provides a good opportunity for, it's easy enough to send that text on to people that you know. That's something that people are going to do if the content is valuable to them. In this example, we've got two. One thing was a pre-Giving Tuesday message where when the donor was prompted to reply back with the phrase Giving Tuesday, and they got an image badge saying, I support the food bank on Giving Tuesday. And we encourage them to post that online, really drum up some excitement for the day of giving. In the other, we did a pre-Thanksgiving message, again, affirmational, really fun, not asking for money directly, but an affirmation that went out prior to Thanksgiving with a recipe from the food bank and a little note about how this recipe came out of their program that serves at-risk youth and teaches them foundational cooking skills, which is a thing I didn't know they had. Many of their donors might not have known they did either. And so it introduced a really fun, interesting detail about their mission, gave everybody a little free bonus of a recipe, and just made for a really affirmational touch point.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So, I mean, in the end, I think it's important to think about it like the golden rule, right? You want to give people the same kinds of things that you would want to get. So keep that in mind and, look at your own inbox to see what was really great and what wasn't, and mimic the really great and throw away the ones that weren't. So.
Well, thanks, Dasha, Katie, for that. We're at time, but before you hop to your 1:30 meeting, if you have one, please let us know what you thought about today's webinar. There's a pop-up to do a quick 5-question survey, so it'll only take you a very short time, I promise. We're going to get to a couple of questions that have come through on the chat. Mark wants to know on the food bank example, what happens if the recipient replies donates? Do you send them a link to the landing page? What's that user experience look like?
Yes. So one of the things we do when we set up an account across the board in any situation, we set up a starting set of automations that will be live all the time. And one of those is going to be any response back about, I want to donate, I want to give a gift, anything like that will be immediately responded to with a message thanking them and pointing them to a donation form. So that's set up to happen at any point in the conversation.
All right. And when you do these programs, do you use a 10-digit number or a 5-digit short code?
We use fully registered 10 DLC numbers. So we use 10-digit numbers for our program. We are able to make sure for the most part that those numbers have a local area code to the location of the organization, which helps to build that personal feeling and that feeling of talking to somebody who's really right there for you.
You know, that's the best thing about having the same phone number for 20 years is whenever I get something from the area code I grew up in, I'm like, I know this is spam. I do not live there. So
there you
go. Get a phone number for where you don't live, and then they'll get rid of some spammers. That's a pro tip, nothing to do with this webinar. Okay. Is there a way to take out or reword the text to stop out message? It seems impersonal. What are the rules about that? Jonathan wants to know.
It's a good question.
Yeah, that's really not, that's at a carrier level. The carriers make those decisions. And I will say that it only needs to be included in your initial outbound message. If it's part of a back and forth, you know, that's in a reply, it doesn't have to be included. But yeah, as part of the registration, that usually it's just the only language that they will accept. And I will say that there was another question about being blocked as spam if you are not. I will say that your best bet is to get insight into whatever errors, but as long as you are registered and vetted and you're sending within the parameters of what you've been set up for and you're following all the rules, you should be able to text just fine. So it's important that you get people that know what the error codes are and how to look for them. And but yes, you should be able to send just fine as long as you're playing by the rules.
Yeah, Heather's typing a follow-up question to her question on that, so I think we'll see that in a second. She asked, that's a question I have, how do you get registered and what are the rules?
So many. A texting vendor worth their salt will, like prompt.io, but you know, any robust text vending vendor that is worth their salt will be able to walk you through that process, ideally make it as painless as possible. You'll have to verify that you are who you say you are. You'll have to give an indication of what type of messages you'll send. But again, as long as you're playing by the rules, you said you are who you say you are, you're saying what it is you're claiming to say to the people that you claim to say it to, and you should be just fine.
Yeah, that's one reason we partnered with Prompt, was because we didn't want to invest the staff time in the registration piece. We wanted to partner with someone who was going to really help streamline that for us. So we could focus on making solid creative and bringing our clients into the program. So I definitely echo that. If your vendor should be a real partner with you in this process.
Last question, which I'm going to reword a little bit. When you're inviting people to opt in to receive text, do you only do that through text messages, or do you use other channels like email, etc. as well to get opt-ins?
No, we use as many channels as we can. So we'll print the text, the keyword to a phone number on direct mail. We'll include it in social media posts and advertisements. We've done some really successful lead gen. It's just really kind of getting started with paid social advertising, pointing people to provide their phone number if they want to, get text messages. We've done emails to your donor file saying we've got this new way to reach out to you and give you updates. And depending on whether they're viewing it on a desktop or a mobile, we can change the content to make it as quick as possible for them to get in. So if you're on a desktop, maybe you scan a QR code with your phone that opens up the message that you can just press send. And if you're on a mobile device, It's just a link that will open up that same message already pre-populated with the number. So I go back and forth on QR codes personally, but I do love them for this application. When you want someone to easily be able to opt in, you can have that QR code, open the messaging app, pre-populate the number, and pre-populate the keyword. So all they have to do is hit the button.
Okay. Another question, how do you see apprehensiveness regarding clicking those links for fears of being scammed? How do you navigate that?
Sure. So one thing that we do that is part of the offering with Prompt specifically is being able to control what that short vanity domain looks like in your text message. So you can make that fairly customizable, and we try to do that as much as possible. It's also a matter of making sure that maybe before you ask them to click through anything, that you're really making it very clear to them who you are and that you are who you say you are. Mm-hmm. So that by the time you've sent them a link, they trust you. And so it's talking to them like an individual, asking them to add your number to their contact list. Is a great way to get going with that too. So it's kind of a trust building exercise.
It's another thing to look at in a platform too, is being able to control the number that is being sent. And if you can make sure that that number is connected with the conversation that it goes on with a particular customer or supporter or donor of yours, that conversational continuity is not a feature that's native in every platform. So it's something to think about when you're wanting to utilize a lot of these extremely effective strategies to encourage people, like save me as a contact in your phone, right? Like here's my details, here's my address, like, here's my website, here's my, so that again, by the time you're sending them a link, you've already built the trust that Katie's talking about in this avenue of text messaging. And so
that's definitely something that does actually make the 10-digit number a little bit more effective than the short code, because usually in a lot of cases, your short code might be shared with other organizations. And so they're getting multiple messages from different places that maybe all share a similar short code. Your 10-digit is really yours. And that way you can kind of claim it and have that conversation always be continuing in their message app.
All right. Well, thanks, Dasha, Katie, for your time today. I learned a lot, so I'm sure everyone on the line did too. And thank you for your time today. If you think of any questions in the coming days, feel free to respond to the email you'll get with today's recording. You can reply to that, and I'll get back to you, or get Katie and Dasha to get back to you. So thanks so much. Enjoy your Wednesday.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.